CM Punk's return to professional wrestling changed everything. There was always a novelty with Punk's return that was imagined throughout the years, but it ultimately felt like something out of reach, seeing as Punk himself wasn't looking forward to entering the world again. But as always, he got the itch, and when he finally returned, it was with All Elite Wrestling. The entire thing felt like a fever dream, with Punk returning to wrestling but facing the likes of Jon Moxley, MJF, FTR, and we just didn't imagine his return to be like this. And the guy was hungry. He proved he was a legitimate draw, which was a common question during his run, and obviously he's not a draw like Stone Cold, all that, but he is a draw. And that's proven by this question. How many people could sell at the United Center based on a rumor? Not many. CM Punk changed the face of AEW as everyone knew it. You have to look at AEW in a different way, you know, before, Christ, and after. And we're not saying CM Punk is the king of the wrestling industry, because people always take this stuff the wrong way, but it's eras. Pre-CM Punk, post-CM Punk. But AEW significantly changed after his debut. He had his run. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing, but he was by far the most compelling character in the company and had this fire and intensity on the microphone that not many could match. And one thing I love about his run is that it felt like a throwback and a tribute to the greats such as Mick Foley, Roddy Piper, and of course Terry Funk. His issues in the back mostly related to the Elite, and it's a bit alluded that Cody left the company because Punk took his spot. I can't say it's true or false, but they're in the same place now. We hear about the Hangman promo and Brawl Out, but it seemed like the big money matches weren't going to happen. And I still hate how AEW never got to do the big matches such as Punk and Omega, Punk and Danielson again, and we did get MJF and Jon Moxley out of it, and those were some great matches if I remember correctly, but it wasn't enough. While drama is entertaining, it won't help a company like AEW. Punk was a huge name for the company, and Tony would obviously do anything he could to keep him. The guy has a crazy fondness for ECW and 2000s ROH. Look at his entire roster right now, just look at it. I guess he looked at it from an emotional standpoint, but business-wise, it wasn't as wise to get rid of him. He changed AEW and took them to the higher level. There was one point I remember AEW was heating up and nearly reaching the WWE's main roster viewership, and a part of that was because of CM Punk. It was a wild month. But Punk's relationship with All Elite Wrestling was strained. He complained on Instagram about many things and threw jabs at Dave Meltzer, Jon Moxley, who apparently didn't want to put him over, and mentioned how Rocky 3 was the base of their story, which makes sense. And while Punk was out, he visited WWE when they came to Chicago in April of 2023. It led to a lot of talk and rumors, but if it was any other wrestler like Ricky Starks, people wouldn't think much. Maybe he did talk business. I don't know, but his AEW run was set up for the coming weeks. It seemed like Punk calmed down, and he might have had animosity, but it also came the night of his re-injury. So that played a part into the whole shoot promo afterwards. CM Punk made his return to All Elite Wrestling on the first episode of Collision. The Chicago crowd, as expected, welcomed him with cheers and adoration. He returned with shoes tied to his neck along with a mystery bag. I remember this segment. I hadn't watched much of the weekly shows for WWE and AEW, but I tuned in live for this. Now his look was different. Usually when he has the buzz cut, he just turns into a demon. Right here, he said he was done being nice. Punk said he rode the wave of smart, passionate fans, and he loves them because they love him. The unapologetic, authentic version of him is always on display, but of course, there's some that hate him, and the fans are ready to go through a wall for him, seeing as this is Chicago. You might as well tell them that Michael Jordan's standing in the middle of the ring. Punk claimed others hate him because the truth is painful, and CM Punk said that fans always react to him because he's true. He said David Zaslav, who's an executive for, I believe, Warner, calls him one Bill Phil. He's the authentic one as opposed to some counterfeit bucks. I don't need to try too hard to tell you who he's referring to, but you get it. Punk didn't believe there's a reason he changed. This is him. He was trained to think like this. The former champion said that there's some that want an apology, so he apologized to the fans for the fact that the wrestlers are softer than him. He's sorry for that. As to the bag, Punk said that this is his because he won the dog collar match. The shoes, until somebody could fill those boots, they belong on his feet. Great promo. Punk laid the law, and if it was anybody else, it would be considered heelish, but Punk was himself, and to some, he's a heel, while to others, he speaks for them and identifies with them on a personal level. It also teased that while he brought the heat here, it would be considered ice cold compared to the moment he actually confronts his enemies. CMFTR returned later that night with Punk having his first match in several years against Samoa Joe. Bullet Club Gold were Joe's partners, and this match served as a good sign that Collision was going to be filled with great matches and stories. It was a heated tag match that would fit any era, and for Punk, it meant victory. I could almost believe that Collision was made because of CM Punk, but that one's a bit conflicting. I'm not too sure about it. Punk's allies extended beyond FTR. He had Ricky Starks by his side. The tag team matches with FTR and Starks were pretty good, and I liked them because it provided a different dimension into CM Punk's run. Plus, he just returned, so no need for him to go all out so soon. But his first singles match came against a Japanese legend. Satoshi Kojima. Kojima was a notable talent in the mid-2000s. He held it down in the cold era for New Japan Pro Wrestling, was their best wrestler in 2005 to many, and in addition, he's an MLW legend, G1 winner, and he loves bread. This was Punk's first match in the Owen Hart tournament, and it's a random one, honestly. You'd think Punk would face Kenta, but it just never happened. Not to mention, bro would probably lose the match with his own move being used against him, and I'm talking about Kenta, of course. He's gonna take the L, but that's not the point. This was fun. Kojima's still capable of putting on good matches, even in this day and age. You still see him wrestling for Major League Wrestling. Punk was the de facto heel, seeing as the fans hated him, and there wasn't that parody with Kojima. The Toronto crowd just didn't like him. He was mocking Kojima's Larry in the corner, which is a reference to an ROH shoot he had several years ago. Kojima had an elbow on Punk's dick. It was hilarious, and he was shown to have plenty of skill and brought great danger to Punk, but we all knew how this would end. But this was about the journey to get there. No lariat for Kojima and no victory. Good match. I enjoyed it because I don't think many considered this match as a possibility. It just wasn't one of those. Punk had wanted Tanahashi, seeing as he was supposed to face him the previous year, but it wasn't to be. His next opponent was Samoa Joe. Punk and Joe had a storied history that deserved exploration. CM Punk said that there's some history that needs to be mentioned, and he said that it feels like the final in the tournament, but he's not trying to overlook his potential future opponent. Punk said that there's a bigger name in all of this. Owen Hart. Seeing as Collision was in Stampede Wrestling Land, Punk touched the trophy, not because he deserves it, but because he'll earn it. Joe and Punk delivered in their Collision match. It's not amazing, but if you watch it with no idea about their history, yeah, it's good. Both guys still had strong knowledge of each other to the point Punk had to beat Joe with a roll-up. He wasn't too happy about this and took him out, setting up their story again. This led to an intense final between Ricky Starks and CM Punk. Both guys were closely associated, and for as much as I hear good about this match, I didn't enjoy this a lot. It felt too long for its own good, and I don't know exactly why it's long. It's a final number 2. You want to set up the victory to be very important for Ricky Starks, but I didn't enjoy it. The final stretch, though, does make this match look better, though. Starks was trying to do anything he could to win the match. Punk was incredibly tough for him, but he stole it. And it was a great result at the time. It showed Punk was willing to put over talent, and he was doing his best to raise Starks above a certain level. Starks didn't care about the way he won because he knows everyone would have done the same thing. Punk admitted that he couldn't hate because he cheated before, and for the fans booing, the New Jersey Devils probably should have cheated to make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Good heat. The real question for Starks was, could he beat CM Punk without cheating? Starks called him back and said that Punk's bag is as empty as his, and to Punk, Stark missed the point. The bag isn't important, but he is the real world champion. Christian Cage interrupted and took a jab at himself, and Punk saying, "Who carries a belt that they didn't win?" Ironic. This led to a tag team match with Darby Allin and CM Punk teaming up against Christian Cage and Ricky Starks. Punk was having fun here, but once again, Starks decided to cheat. CM Punk wasn't all too happy about Starks, but he was looking forward to All In. He finally revealed what's in the bag. The AEW World Championship, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. Punk called himself the real champion as the fans booed. He put an X on the belt and said that it's his. Ricky Starks saw the gold around Punk's arm and said he bit Punk before he could bite him. He beat him twice, so now Starks called himself the real world champion and the face of Collision. Starks said even if Stevie Wonder was a referee, he'd beat him. The champion said he wanted a referee that was well aware, seeing as Starks cheated the last 2 times, but he didn't care. Starks didn't care. He even asked him to bring someone from Stanford. The referee ended up being Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. This one was much better than their first match. It just knew what it wanted to be and actually executed that better. It just flowed better, and that's literally all that there is different. The fact that it was more heated, seeing as Punk was trying to avoid being screwed. Starks feeling like this is his big break into the main event. Great energy all around. Steamboat came to the rescue here, and as a result of this, Starks completed his heel turn after attacking Steamboat and whooping him with a belt. Now on the other side, these tag matches were bomb. CMFTR against the House of Black. This was for the Trios title, and it was a match that saw Samoa Joe catch Punk off guard and choke him out. This came after he demanded an opportunity. Joe felt like Punk was ignoring him. Punk quickly retaliated and managed to drop him with the GTS. So the match was on for All In at Wembley. Before the event, Punk had his last tag match in the promotion, and he teamed up with Darby Allin, Sting, and Hook against Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Switchblade Jay White. Now, the fans weren't that receptive towards Punk. They were booing like crazy, but the real world champion made a statement in front of Samoa Joe and beat him with his own sleeper hold. Both men were all in their battle. Joe won this one, but it didn't stand out because of what followed. Now, Samoa Joe believed that Punk was never as good as he said. There was still mutual respect between them, and while they hated each other, they both acknowledged that they had great moments during their friendship. Now, All In had its fair share of controversy. Jack Perry wants to use real glass for a spot. I believe this was on Collision a couple of weeks earlier. Don't know why CM Punk of all people had to tell him to shut it down, but this was apparently because a lot of guys in management told him it wasn't a good idea, and Punk was kind of a higher authoritative figure in some ways. It wasn't exactly an authority, but he had a voice. And when you hear about this, it's times like this where it feels like wrestlers could do whatever they want. Like, why the hell is the guy lobbying for real glass? There's no reason for him to lobby for real glass on a random episode of Collision. Simple as that. At the end of the day, you're gonna get your point across with fake glass, real glass does not matter. Punk wanted to set the long Collision. By the time this image happened, Punk basically knew that his AEW run was coming to an end. He had an incident with Jack Perry after he took a jab at Punk mentioning that this is real glass. There's conflicting reports as it relates to this. Punk says that it wasn't a good idea because the car they were using for the spot, the glass spot, probably would have rented cars out to All Elite Wrestling. To all of us, I just want to say, this stuff's murky, it's blurry, but that's wrestlers, you know, they got the passion, they're crazy, all that stuff. And if you want to watch this drama between CM Punk and Jack Perry, you can go watch 27 other videos on YouTube. I just don't want to talk about it and only spoke about it now because it's a part of CM Punk's run. You want to dive into it, there's many other videos on it. I just want to talk about his wrestling run here. Tony Khan stated that he feared for his life when Punk was angry, which I find funny because CM Punk isn't no Mickey Gall or anything like that. We're getting too much in the drama. Let's talk about the last match. It was vibes. The guys were having fun here. Then Punk bled and they really went to work. Intensity, hype moments. This match had a lot packed into it for something that was about 15 minutes, and it was a throwback to their battles. I don't think it's very good because if they had more time, I think the match would have been more notable, but it was good for what it was. And ironically, Punk ended his AEW run with one of his great rivals. He left, he was released a couple of days later, and Tony Khan probably cried in his office seeing as one of his biggest moneymakers was gone. Now, Punk's AEW run as a whole is weird. Like, people still talk about it to this very day. They miss the fire he had in his promos. They obviously don't want to watch WWE because it's WWE. But All Elite Punk had novelty to him, to put it simply. There's a lot of novelty, but at the same time, he just wasn't going to work there because while Punk is of the old school, he's more assertive in the way he does things. Punk himself has a lot of supporters, the likes of Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, a lot of the older guys. And when Punk sees some of the newer guys doing some stuff like glass and all that, he acts out. He wasn't happy about it. Plus, he didn't see how AEW is doing certain things. Called Tony Khan a clown to his face. It just wasn't gonna work. At the end of the day, All Elite Wrestling and CM Punk just wasn't a good match. It was a perfect match in many ways. But all around, no, it wasn't going to work. Because even if you take away the Jack Perry incident, I'm 200% certain something else would have happened that would have pushed Punk over the edge. It probably would have been Jack Perry himself. I don't know. But it's a fascinating thought to think about Punk if he remained in AEW, because surely he was going to face MJF, and probably by then he would have turned heel. He would have been the big bad villain and all that, because it makes too much sense. A lot of the fans despised him in the company at that time. They despised him. They felt like he ruined the essence of what AEW is. It was obviously the perfect time to turn him into a villain. It's a fascinating thought to look at Punk beyond 2023 AEW, but if we're going logically and honestly, no, I don't think he would have lasted. I think there would have been an incident anyways, and he would have left. And there should have been barriers in the company, but at the end of the day, Punk's actions are what led to his firing. Nowadays, he's doing much better in WWE as it relates to his own behavior, his own morale. They're doing things differently there. He was the top draw though, you know? At the end of the day, even though it's All Elite Wrestling, there was some points where CM Punk was the focal point and the main attraction of the company. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to admit because they have a personal gripe against CM Punk. He pushed your favorite wrestler or whatever, but it's the truth. Obviously, it wasn't going to work all around, but if the place was run a bit differently, I don't think it would have gotten to the point where CM Punk had to put his hands on Jack Perry. Like, yeah, it's a low impulse, blah, 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 but still, it should have gotten to the point where CM Punk was the last guy to tell him not to use real glass. Going back to the whole incident with Hangman and all that, they should have closed that stuff the moment it happened, but it is what it is. Alright, what you guys think of Punk's final days in AEW? Please comment down below, and that's for this video. Make sure you hit the Anaconda device on the like button and perhaps the GTS on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.